In this talk, I'm going to tell a little story and talk about why it can be so powerful to find our center and find our sort of place of inner resources. So onto this story. I used to love watching the show Mr. Monk, and if you haven't watched it, Mr. Monk is this detective, and he's very gifted, and he has OCD. So he's always cleaning, and it's really important to him that things are very orderly and lined up. And you always see him in his apartment cleaning things up and vacuuming the curtains, and he gets a lot of joy out of this. And whenever he's in an environment that is clean, he's always trying to tidy things up. And he'll go around and he takes in information from these detective cases, and at a certain point things will hit him, and he'll have a flash of insight, and the solution to the case will hit him. And it's just generally a fun show. So there's one episode that I particularly like, and I have to get the exact episode. I'll put the link to the scene I'm talking about in the notes, but I call it Mr. Monk in the Clean Room. So basically in this one episode, he's living in San Francisco, and there's a trash strike. And as a result of the trash strike, the people won't come to pick up the trash, so the trash is filling up in the streets, and the whole city, it's hot and it's smelling, and little by little this is driving Mr. Monk just crazy, and he's really out of sorts, and he's what I would describe being very off-center. He's just really out of his element, and so distressed, and he's working on this case, but no matter how hard he tries to solve it, he just isn't able to solve this case. And finally, at a certain point, the police sergeant that he works with takes him to this place. He doesn't tell them where they're going, and they walk into this room, and it's this pristine, perfectly white room, and they close the door, and it's just the two of them in this room sitting at this white table. And and he says, well, what is this place? And the guy explains to him that it's a laboratory where they put computer components together. And he said that it's basically the cleanest room in the whole world. And there's a fresh oxygen supply. And Mr. Monk says, yes, and it's quiet. And he's just sitting there enjoying himself. And you just see this calm come over him. And it's like he's back in his element. And he says, my head is clearing. And almost in that instant, he says, I know who did it. And he has his flash of insight, and he's able to solve this case. So the reason I love this particular episode is it's such a great example of what happens when we take a moment for ourselves to come back to our center, however we get there. My belief is that when we're in that place of general well-being, or even when you're in a storm, when you arrive at the eye of the storm, it's your nervous system can finally relax. And when your nervous system relaxes, sort of general well-being starts to come about again. And my sense is that when we return to that place, things are generally pretty good. They may not be mind-blowingly exciting, but they're good and pleasant, and that's the place where insight can come, new ideas, a general ability to relate well with people. Our relatedness improves. And part of what's happening is when we calm down, when our nervous system calms down, we're quieting the part of our brain, the reptilian part of our brain, that make us anxious, can make us confused, can encourage us to worry. And so it's really powerful if you find ways of returning to your home base. And whatever way it is for you, it can be meditation, or to put it more simply, just sitting quietly for a few moments a day, or spending time in one of your favorite places. It could be a cafe, going into nature. And the more you practice that, the more easy it is to just return to that sort of home base very easily. It becomes a familiar pattern in your nervous system. You know, one of my teachers, Stephen Gilligan, always talks about the importance of returning to center first before you try to solve anything, before you try to do anything in the world. He uses the analogy of the masks dropping on an airplane. He said it's important that you put your mask on first, that you return to your center, and then you're better able to help yourself, take care of the people around you, and move out in the world that's very generative and very powerful. So I recommend that you notice when you are in a centered place, just the times and places. It doesn't have to be a big ritual. It can be. You know, I have a meditative practice. I like practicing movement. So I have a variety of ways that I like to return to center for myself, or enter into a meditative state or a trance state where for a moment you sort of let go of all the concerns and all the holding on. And it can be tricky at times when we are worried or when we're anxious. It's natural for our brain to want to fix things now. And it's a little counterintuitive to say, okay, let me pause and connect to my center first. And then that can help me solve whatever it is I need to solve, if there's something that needs solving in that moment. So like I said, I'll put the link to this particular clip. It's great, and I recommend the whole. I hope you find many, many ways of returning to center and tapping on home base and returning to your sort of goodwill, full of resources.